Cashiers, what was the worst time you blew up on a customer? At a pawn shop. The lady paid me with a 20 and I gave her change. She flipped up because she knew she'd given me a $100 bill. She screamed, cursed, and called me every name in the book, just lost her mind. The whole time she's saying she knew she paid with a $100 bill. She'd just put one in her wallet earlier. I asked her repeatedly to just check her wallet to see if the bill was there or not. She just kept yelling and she said she didn't need to check because she had already given it to me. Eventually, she checked, and all the anger just blew out of her. She was mortified. The $100 bill was there. Female dog. Next story. When I worked at Subway in high school, there was this guy in his 30s that came in with his wife almost every day. He was a jerk and talked to you like an idiot. Not because he was in a bad mood either, because he thought it would be funny to be a jerk to kids working fast food jobs, I guess. One day I had enough and took a sandwich I was in the middle of making and spiked it into the garbage and told him to screw off. He told me I couldn't talk to customers that way. I told him, I just did, you idiot. He called the owner and dropped my name. We had name tags. And she told him that if I blew up on him like that, it was probably deserved, and asked him not to return. I for sure thought I was fired. Lucky for me, the owner knew exactly what customers she was talking to and knew me well enough to know it takes a lot to get me irritated. I wouldn't do something like that for no reason. Next story. This woman who used to come into the coffee shop I managed was the real-world equivalent of Dolores Umbridge. She was smug, obnoxious, and delighted in being a giant pain in the butt. She came in daily and had a ridiculously complicated drink order which she was unnecessarily nitpicky about. She came in one day when our grinder was having issues, which I warned her about. I happened to be on register and not on bar, so my employee, who was my best employee at the time, made the drink. She took it and left. The next day she came in, and before she even hit the register, she announced, very rudely in my general direction, "You're making my drink, right?" I switched places with the person in the bar in order to make it. As her drink was so wildly complicated, it took several minutes to make, throughout which I was told how terrible her drink had been yesterday, how it ruined her day, how she'd have lost faith in the company, whatever. I apologized profusely and offered to comp her drink. That wasn't good enough. She told me she wanted the person who had made her drink before fired. I lost my temper. I more or less told her that I was sorry her drink wasn't up to par the day before, but I apologized, offered a free beverage, and had actually warned her that we were having an equipment issue the day before, which was the likely culprit, not the employee. She told me I must have woken up on the wrong side of the bed, and I said, no, actually, you're a giant pain in the butt. Your order is obnoxious, and we bend over backwards to accommodate you daily. She had a whole list of things aside from the crazy drink. It had to be served with a certain number of napkins. Her sleeve had to be facing a specific way. Whatever. And if that's how you feel, please take your business elsewhere. Coffee Umbridge tut-tutted her way out of my shop in a huff, and I didn't even care if I got in trouble for telling her off. I didn't. I will forever be baffled by the lack of self-awareness from people. Like, seriously, how do you have a crazy order, want your sleeve to be facing a certain way, specific number of napkins, and not realize that you are the picky one? It's fine to be picky, but you need some self-awareness about it. Some humbleness. Just anything that doesn't make you an entitled jerk, please. Next story. This wasn't me, but I was involved. When I was in high school, I worked at a shoe store. The one with the freaking prize wheel from hell. We did this buy one, get one half off sale all the time. The way it works is you buy a more expensive pair and you get the cheaper of the two half off. Otherwise, we'd lose money. So this woman comes in and buys 2 pairs of kids' shoes, looks at the receipt and thinks that $50 is too much for her smaller child, so she returns them. She then proceeds to flip out because the difference for the other pair came out of the refund. I called the manager and he came up and she says, "He's a foster kid. He's not worth a $50 pair of shoes. Stop trying to rob me and give me my freaking money." So manager refunded her the entire bill and took both pairs of shoes and walked off. We all gave her the silent treatment until she left angrily. I feel bad for both children and her husband who were just standing there quietly. Next story. I had a guy come through my register once wanting to put some stuff on his store credit card. He didn't have the card or any ID, so I couldn't ring him through. Technically, I could, but it was against SOP. He started screaming at me saying that everyone there knew him and that he was a regular. I was at my job for over a year and never saw that man once in my time working there before this. I told him no, I couldn't ring him through without the card or ID, but I could hold his stuff at the register until he comes back. He proceeded to get more belligerent and in my face. So I told him in an assertive tone, "You need to leave. You can't be yelling at staff." He leaves, then comes back an hour later to buy his stuff, but still no ID or card. I proceed to tell him I can't ring him in again, so he starts screaming bloody murder wanting the ASM to come. Stupid ASM has no spine and tells me to ring the guy through, then goes back to the floor wherever he was before. As soon as the ASM left, I told the customer to leave and that he wasn't welcome at the store anymore. Never saw him again after that. Next story. I was a server years ago, and this woman, who is usually a pretty nice lady, comes in, and apparently we messed up her salmon a few days prior, so the manager had given her a free meal card, which is good for one single meal. Well, a few days later, she comes in with at least 15 people about an hour before we closed. They all order seafood and steak and wine, and her whole party is awful to me and my friend, who's another server. One guest even threw his plate on the ground, breaking it, throwing food all over because his steak was overcooked. After all of this, the other server went to take the woman her check, and it was a couple $100. This woman whips out the free meal card. The server takes it to the register, comps one of the meals off, and comes back with the new total. The woman loses it. "I have a free meal card. This was one meal for all of us. It should be free." And the server just stiffens up and politely explains that isn't how it works, and stresses that she had to have known she couldn't have brought 15 people in here and expected free meals for everyone. The woman stands up, pours her red wine all over my friend, and my friend just goes, "What the hell?" and runs back to get to the manager. She kept her calm, honestly, but the manager flipped, told her to get the hell out and never come back. That was a crazy night. Next story. I carded a woman trying to buy cigarettes who got really whiny when I didn't just give it to her. It was in her car, so she left and came back. When I held out my hand for it, she tried to fling it at my face and missed. It fell on the floor behind the counter and I refused to pick it up. I called for next customer and started ignoring her. When she asked for it back, I gave her permission to come around the counter to get it. It was petty, but in the moment, I wasn't gonna budge. She called the cops and said I stole it. When they came, I explained what happened. He gave her a really annoyed look and she yells, "Make him give it to me!" Then looks back to me. He literally ordered me to pick it up. I'd honestly rather lose my job, but I was afraid of what would happen if I refused an officer. So I picked it up and gave it to her. She got the satisfaction of winning and got to leave with a big, smug look on her face. Afterwards, the officer apologized and said he was basically afraid of upsetting her. I was dangerously close to calling him a coward. Next story. Had customer come in to do a return on a toilet seat. Not to me, but the customer service person. She tells him store policy is we don't do returns on seats out of the plastic. He starts telling her he just took it out to check it. It's not the right shape. She repeats store policy and there's no manager here to override it. It's literally impossible for us to return it. He doesn't like this and starts raising his voice and trying to bully her. She is super shy and quiet, so she just kind of shuts down. The other cashier says very loudly, "It's dirty. He didn't just take it out. He's a liar." He became incredibly angry. I reached over, hit the light, and said, "You're on a break. Go upstairs." He protested, but I repeated and he left. Customer said, "What did that female dog say?" I replied, "Don't worry about it. I'll handle it later. We aren't doing your return." He starts to protest again, but I cut him off. "I don't care. I don't care what you did or what you have to say. We aren't doing your return today. You've got two options. Take your toilet seat home and come back tomorrow and talk to a manager, or take your seat and get out of here. Either way, you're leaving here with the freaking seat." He left. Managers became required to be there on weekends. Someone brought me M&Ms. Next story. I honestly don't remember this, but my coworkers do. Apparently a customer yelled at me, "Go to hell!" And I yelled back, "I'll see you there!" My sis and I say this to each other a lot for funsies, and it's the only reason I believe I may have said this to an irate customer. But one I do remember was a customer who brought up a sandwich that apparently looked awful to her. She held it out to me and said, "Would you eat this?" And without missing a beat, I said, "Yeah." That shocked her into silence for a good few seconds. I was being honest. I mean, the sandwich looked fine to me. Gotta love it when people with delusional views of things get completely shut down. Not even like consciously shut down, just like, no, it's fine, dude. What's the problem? You can only hope that makes them reevaluate. It might not, but we can hope. Next story. Okay, hold on to your hats, ladies and gentlemen. I work in a place that is funded by a university. Basically, all the small walk-in customers don't make us money, nor do we need them. This gives me a little leeway when it comes to customer service. So we had this old guy who would come in and print stuff. We're a print center. Anyway, he would always try and talk to our managers because they were men and the rest of us were women. When he would come in and our managers were gone, he would be rude to the employees and complain. So there's the background. Now he comes in one night and I was alone helping two other customers. They were Asian and black. He places himself in front of them and basically acted like they weren't there. I told him he would have to wait as I was helping them. He said, "It doesn't matter, they're darker skinned and used to waiting." Honestly, I was so thrown off by his outright racism, so all I said was, please move. I'll be with you in a second. I helped the two customers and they moved to the side to look at their prints. The old guy comes up and hands me his flash drive. I asked him for the file name and how he wanted it printed. He called me stupid and that I should know these things. I told him I didn't appreciate the way he was talking to me. He continued to berate me for a little bit, and then once I got a word in, I told him I would not be printing his things. He has to leave. This threw him over the edge because we were the only print shop around that was open that late and he needed his stuff printed by tomorrow morning. So I told him that if he would like my help, he could go outside, turn his attitude around, and then once he got his head on straight and apologizes, he can come back in. Lo and behold, he leaves. I apologized to the earlier customers, and they said if he comes and makes a complaint, they'd back me up on what happened. After they left, he came back and said, "What's your name? I want to know your name." I said, "My name is OP, and my manager's name is blank. Feel free to talk to him later." He tried handing me his flash drive, and I said that I wanted an apology first. He became flustered again and started yelling at me for being a disrespectful little girl. I'm a college-aged woman, and I honestly couldn't care less. So then I basically told him to get out, and if he ever comes back, I'll call security. Next story. I only ever lost it on a customer once, when I was working in an office supply store. Customer was one of those self-important money pusher types. Came in during the lunch rush on a day when we were short-handed. He wanted to buy a phone. I normally would have helped him, but I was stuck on register. I did everything I could to help this guy anyway. When I was finally able to focus on him exclusively, he launched into a lecture along the lines of how he specifically was the most important person in the store. I just lost it. I barely remember what I said to the guy. I know I tried to walk away first, but he pushed it. I ended up tearing into him so badly, he basically ran from the store, and the assistant manager on duty was too stunned to do anything about the incident. I hated that job. Quit not long after. Next story. I work in a pharmacy. I tell people calmly that we won't be filling controls for them early because no one is willing to lose their license over their Norco/Percocet/Benzo of choice/Adderall. They lose their minds. The best one was when the dude flipped out because his insurance wouldn't pay for a non-scheduled drug early. We told him it would be 2 whole days, and he lost his mind. Started screaming at us that he would be the reason that he would die and it would be all my fault. I didn't yell at him. I leaned across the counter and told him in a quiet tone of voice, "No, your non-compliance and rage issues will be what ends you, and I will never, ever serve you again. You don't get to scream at me, and you certainly don't get to refer to me the way you have and expect anything of me." He called me a female dog after calling me everything but a child of God. I freaking hate overly dramatic jerks. And I told him, "Hey, I may be a female dog, but I'm not your female dog, and you still aren't getting your way. No matter what the pharmacist says because he's jelly-spined and passive, you are leaving. No one here, not the techs, not the other customers, and not the other pharmacist, is here to put up with you. Get out. Before I call management and they call the cops." The pharmacist finally stepped in and told him to leave and that he was no longer welcome. That is the only horrible customer I've ever seen him transfer out, and there are several who are like that he needs to get rid of and won't. Next story. I never blew up on a customer that I remember, but one time I showed up to my crap job at Dollarama in the morning. In the evenings, the staff is supposed to put away all the misplaced product back on the shelves. Facing, I think it was called. We would organize it by aisle, then take each basket and put everything away. Standard stuff. Anyway, I show up in the morning and it's only me and my female dog boss, entitled and disrespectful. There were supposed to be 5 of us for the shift, but we had 3 no-shows or sick call-ins. All the merch from the night before that was supposed to be put away was still not done, so it was only me and my boss, with extra work from the night before. Luckily, it wasn't too busy, but boss decides that she'll sit on register with no customers while I put away all the merch from the night before. Fine. She has seniority, and I'd rather be doing something than nothing. I finish one basket, and as I'm coming back for the other 9, she has the gall to ask, "You're not done yet? Could you hurry it up?" Well, you're welcome to grab a basket. Freaking idiot. Next story. I was a cashier at a UK-based company. Let's say it rhymes with Broisons. So there I am, first real day on the job. A woman in her mid-40s comes over and starts putting items on the belt. I ask politely, "Do you want any help bagging?" She didn't answer me, so I ask again. "Do you want any help bagging?" Slightly louder. She ignores me and I just scan the food and at the end of the till is full. So I ask again, "Do you want me to bag your items, ma'am. So she flips out and starts yelling, calls my manager over, and she keeps arguing and pointing at me like I'm not there. I lose my cool and just full on flip out on this woman. Right, I've asked you 3 times, do you want me to bag your stuff? And 3 times you ignored me. And the final time I ask you, you flip out at me and call the manager like I'm the jerk here. What the hell is your problem? I was promptly let go and asked to clean out my locker. Fun times. Next story. Not a cashier exactly, but a bartender. There was a hotel next to the restaurant/bar I worked at, which often would bring in crews of construction workers and other types of traveling workers. Most behaved themselves just fine, and some of my regulars were seasonal workers who stayed next door. There were crass, classless individuals from time to time, though. Usually a quick comment that they're in a restaurant, not a sports bar, was enough to calm them down, but not this group. They came in on a Friday, were loud, rude, and vulgar, making passes at waitresses and irritating other guests. I ended my shift while they were still there, and when I arrived the next day, I was informed that they followed a waitress out to her car and wouldn't let her leave. They blocked her from getting into her car, and when she was finally able to get past them, they stood in front of her car and jeered, making rude gestures and remarks. Eventually, the kitchen guys came out and they left. They showed back up the next night, and I was instructed to deal with them if they came back after the GM went home, which of course they did. So we started the usual deal. You're not welcome back due to your behavior. Please leave, etc. The foreman, or whatever he was, insisted it was all a joke. I needed to get a sense of humor. His exact words were, "You need to go to the dollar store and buy a sense of humor." Whatever that means. So this goes on for a bit. He actually had the gall to ask for a refund for the previous night. I declined, and as this conversation continued, I began to lose my patience. The guy got more belligerent and insulting and repeated his weird dollar store comment multiple times. I finally lost my patience roughly the 400th time he said this and said, "The dollar store, huh? Is that where you get your dental work done? You have 10 seconds to get the hell out of this bar before I call the cops." I could tell this was a sore spot for him as he looked like he chewed rocks every day for breakfast. He deflated quickly as several patrons and most of the waitstaff witnessing this laughed at him openly. He left quietly and did not come back. Next story. I was a manager of a CVS, and during an extremely busy time of the day, I opened up the photo lab register to help the regular cashiers keep the lines down. I announced that I'm open, and the nearest customer happily took her merchandise to my register. Then the second nearest customer started saying loudly that she was first and it was her turn. I said she will be the next after I take care of this customer. When it was her turn, she started going off on me that it was rude of me not to help her, blah blah blah. I ignored her as much as possible. She kept going on and on until I said, "Lady, I opened this register as a favor so the wait time would be shorter. If you'd rather wait in one of the regular register lines, you're more than welcome." She was shocked I talked back to her. She didn't realize I was the manager. She found one of the employees who was stocking a shelf in the candy aisle and demanded that she speak to a manager. That employee called for a manager over the intercom, and I happily walked over to the candy aisle to see her waiting for a manager. With a big smile on my face, I let her know I was the manager on duty. She walked out of the store without saying a word. I was off work like an hour later, but apparently she sent her husband in looking for me, but I was home by then. They complained to corporate. I was told not to take my job so personally, and that was it. Next story. I think you'd get better answers if you asked, what was the worst time you wanted to blow up on a customer? I would get fired if I actually ever blew up on anyone, and I think many cashiers are in the same bite your tongue and smile situation, which only invites abuse from jerks. A few weeks ago, my manager told me we'd get some people coming through the restaurant who were owed free meals because they had a complaint about one of the ingredients in meals they'd had previously. It was already kind of ridiculous because of the details of it, but we were like, whatever, we'll give them what they want. They come in and proceed to order the most expensive meals you can get, totaling over $50 for 3 people. Because of how the restaurant works, the food was ready before they got to me. They kept remembering things they claimed they had last time, and after some thought, I tried to get them to pay the $15 or whatever for their sides and stuff because I was only supposed to comp their meals, but they claimed they didn't even have a form of payment with them. None of the 3 of them. Yeah, right. The smug, satisfied look on their faces destroyed me. I wanted to punch the main guy's punchable freaking face. Like it had no effect on me personally, but it was just such a scummy, shameless thing to do. I couldn't help feeling that way. I just bit my tongue and followed my clearly upset manager's instructions. I didn't blow up on them. The most I did is not wish them a good day as I usually would, and because of that, I still have my job. Next story. It wasn't me, but I was a part of it. This customer was eating our buffet for a sports game of some sort. sort. It was wings, pretzels, mozzarella sticks, etc. This huge man comes in and he gets the buffet. Him and his date eat about 5 to 6 plates worth of food. The guy came up to me and said the food wasn't good enough and he wasn't willing to pay the $30-ish for the 2 buffets when it was no good. I then grabbed our manager, a total badass. He was awesome. I could tell stories about him all day. He told him off so hard, explaining that he had so much food and didn't complain when people checked in on him. The guy was baffled that we didn't straight up comp his meal. He didn't know what to say. If I remember correctly, this guy was on a date with a fairly new woman, too. Great early impression he must have made. I like to imagine he did it to show off and it just horrendously backfired. Like a whole, watch this sort of situation. God, I would have loved to see the look on his face. Next story. Old lady came in for a refund, which I processed. Turns out she wanted an extra item for her time coming back. It was literally 58 pence for an already reduced loaf of bread. After getting the refund, she proceeded to ask for a scratch card for free for the hassle of coming in. I said, no, you can have another loaf of bread though.
No, I want what I want, not what you want.
And knocked over a stack of Pringles in front of the checkouts. At this point, I was already disinterested in going further with this, and my staff were getting a bit worried. So I signed off the till and told her if she doesn't leave in 30 seconds, I will have to escort her out of the shop or call the police.
No, you won't. I have rights. I didn't come all this way to be treated like crap.
I'm like, I didn't come to work to be treated like crap by an old hag like you. You want to act like a child, I'm going to treat you like one. I have never heard anyone shout as loud after that, but she quickly left after I embarrassed her in a long line of people. Next story. One time I was working the register at Chick-fil-A. Wasn't having a bad day at work. The register was fun. Anyway, this middle-aged woman comes up to my post with equally aged men on either side of her. She starts ordering, I'm punching things in as usual. Now, the restaurant had this piece of protocol in which you confirm the desired items as you punch them in, just helping the customer be absolutely sure about their order, and that I put it in correctly. I punched something in and tried to confirm the previous item, sparking a rather annoyed, yes. Hell no, I wasn't getting paid to be bickered out for doing what I'm told. I knew I had to shut her attitude down before it got worse, so I responded with, I'm just checking, in an equally annoyed tone. We made eye contact, her expression borderline angry and mine vacant and blank. I didn't want to escalate the situation. The transaction proceeded without incident. I get that what I did was tame, but it takes a lot to get me yelling, especially at someone else. That was basically my version of a low-level freakout. Next story. Not money, but ranch. At a pizza place I worked at a few years back, guy came in and ordered pizza and breadsticks. Paid and said his wife is coming home, and she was going to pick it up on her way home since he had to get home now. Whatever. He paid, we got our money, I don't care at this point. 20 minutes later, the wife came in and asked for ranch. Normally it's like 50 cents for small and $1 for the large ones, but manager was pretty chill. Would allow one small per customer if they asked, so I gave her a small one for free. She looked stunned and asked for more in a less than nice way. So I took the ranch back and told her, I can't give them away for free, they cost money. She acted as if I took the cheese off her pizza or something. With my manager right behind me, I told her we can't give away free stuff. We're a business, we're here to make money, not give free crap to dumb people. She yelled and I stayed calm. She finally asked for my manager and I just did the thumb point behind me and said, that's him right there. I'm a big dude, I'm 6'5", and the manager was a good 2 or 3 inches taller. He just said, yeah, no ranch for you. She huffed and left. I never stopped laughing the entire night. Next story. I work at a gas station. Pretty popular, although small. We have a problem with solicitors in my town, so we are heavy on banning people from our store when someone comes in and asks our actual customers to buy something for them or begs for gas money, asks for change to cover something they want to buy, etc. But this one guy, I know he was homeless and had a disability of some kind. I can't be sure what, since he seemed coherent and capable of picking up heavy items if he wanted, but after seeing him come into my store night after night with not enough change, constantly repeating what the price of a 2-liter of Mountain Dew was while someone else was standing at the register, and finally wanting to buy beer and cigars, I had enough. I told him flat out with a line full of people one night that it was the last time I wanted to see him in my store and to never come back. I refused to sell beer to him or cigars without an ID, which he never had on him ever. He got upset and left, saying he wasn't coming back. I stopped doing night shifts for a while and eventually had them after a couple of weeks. The guy showed back up and I was stocking cups. He placed a 2-liter of Mountain Dew on the counter and I said to him, don't think I forgot about you. Get out. I haven't had to call the police yet, but I'm very close to doing it. I do not tolerate those who do not follow directions. Next story. This woman was acting like a rude female dog. She was a regular, not in a, hey, how are the kids way, but in a, oh, here she comes kind of way. She was normally tolerable. This day, she decided to have an attitude while I was still with the customer ahead of her by slamming her few items down on the belt and sighing because her time is obviously more precious than ours. I finish with my customer and she starts talking about sales and how prices were wrong, having a tone. I refused to change any prices. More attitude, and she said she would call the manager, but she was in a hurry, so she pulled her $20 bill out of her bra and unfolded it and held it out for me to take. I looked at her disgusted. I can't take that. Why not? Immediate rage. I can't take money from your underwear. What? It's my bra. That's your underwear. I'm not a dirty person. I don't know that. Her eyes lit up.
Where's her manager?
The male jerk manager doesn't work at night anymore, and he's not my manager. I'm his supervisor. I'll take your money right now, but next time I won't take anything from your underwear. I took it by pinching the corner of it, tossing it under my drawer dramatically as not to mix it with my clean money, gave her her change and told her to have a nice day. She was mad. Livid even. I was so sick of that job by that point I ended up quitting a few months later. I had a reputation as an angel. I was pretty much a pushover with customers. That day though, I was just done. She was the worst I had ever treated a customer. Next story. I used to work with food, sandwiches, salads, soups. I remember one time when the store was quiet, there were only a few guests, and I had just made this salad for a lady. Apparently I made it wrong though, because she walks up to me and demands a new salad. I'm a bit dumbfounded because it looks fine to me, so I ask her what's wrong. The female dog says,
You work here. You should know what's wrong with it.
I tell her, I don't. And if she tells me what's wrong, I'll gladly make her a new salad. She rolls her eyes and goes,
The avocado is supposed to be diced.
She wanted me to make her a new salad because I put sliced avocado on her salad instead of diced. Next story. Guy came in and was buying 2 liters of soda. As I'm ringing him up, he asks for a bag. I say okie dokie and continue to finish the part of the transaction I was currently working. He asks for a bag again. I figure he didn't hear me the first time, so I say it again. A little louder, but continue to do the transaction first. When he asks for a bag the 3rd time, I straight up say, okay, while looking at him dead in the face. He asks me what okie dokie means and if I speak English. Being that I'm like 7th generation American and white as fresh fallen snow, I'm genuinely surprised this dude has never heard the phrase okie dokie and proceed to tell him that yeah, I speak English and okie dokie is slang. At that point, he starts throwing coins to pay for this damn bottle of soda off the counter at me and I just snap. I avoid the transaction, remove his soda from my register and tell him I'm refusing him service. Dude pushes back a little bit, but surprisingly doesn't demand my manager and eventually leaves. The only time I've ever come close to just obliterating a customer and quitting on the spot was when some female dog dropped the "Customer's always right" line in an angry tirade at me in front of my manager over her misunderstanding what I said. More specifically, when she dropped the "I write your paycheck" line right after the customer line. I hope that dog flea medication was expired and didn't work. It came in a white box originally, but the one she bought was manila from Age. Next story. Worked at a sandwich shop. I get assigned to train a new girl who is shadowing me at my register. A big, upset woman comes in with 2 other gentlemen, and she orders a croissant sandwich with no tomatoes, sub avocado. I proceed to explain to her that I can't do that. Tomatoes and avocado aren't equivalent. I don't even get that far because she interrupts me, starts to mock the way I was talking to her, tells me they've done it for her before. I stand my ground and tell her regardless if someone else had done it before, I wasn't going to because that's not how it works. I was trying to make a point to my trainee. She gets so angry, says some crap to me, then looks at my trainee and says, "Don't learn from her, Cynthia. She's a bad one." She then struggles to pay with her card because she's broke apparently, and gives me lip when I tell her her card was declined. When she walks away, the 2 gentlemen she's with come up to me and apologize for her. I was so checked out, I just said, "You're the one who has to deal with her every day, not me." Next story. I had already put my 2 weeks in at the gas station when a woman comes up with a van and tries to pump gas with the vehicle running. I tell her over the intercom to shut the engine off. She started to argue with me over the intercom. I just turned it off to deal with the small lineup inside. She comes inside and starts arguing with me. I calmly told her the rules are for safety, and if she wants to fuel while the engine is on, she can try another gas station. She starts screaming, telling me I'm being a female dog to ruin her day. I just snapped back in front of everybody and yelled, "Oh, really? Am I in your place of work harassing you for following the rules so people don't freaking explode?" To which the customers laughed. She kept arguing back, so I said, "Fine, go fill your tank." As soon as she was outside, I locked the doors. I told customers they could leave if they wished by pushing the black handle. Nobody did anything until the irate customer sped off. I figured it was common sense to not fill your tank while the car is on. Like, it's so easy to just turn your car off. Why does it need to be on? Is that going anywhere? I really don't understand. Idling in general just makes no sense. But doing it while filling your tank? crazy. Next story. I remember I was probably 17 or 18 working at Whataburger in Austin. I worked really early and late hours. I remember this one time very specifically. Customer had come to the window and I politely asked him to move forward. There was one car behind him. I was just trying to give the guy his drinks. The customer yelled at me, telling me the only way he would move is if I made him move myself. Told me I wasn't anybody to tell him what to do. In the midst of him yelling at me, he pointed at me and I just slammed the window shut in his face. The managers came to ask me what was wrong. I explained and begged them to handle the customer before I fought him. My manager still made me talk to him. I then realized when I turned to hand him his food that the window it was cracked and he heard everything. He threatened me, saying if I ever slammed the window in his face again, he'd kick my butt. Dude was like 30, by the way. But before he could finish his sentence, I slammed the window again and ran outside to fight him. He drove off and I threw his food out the window. I didn't get fired, I just got moved to cook. Next story. I work at McDonald's. One morning, this older guy who's a regular at the place and was known to give the workers a hard time was trying to order breakfast and said he wanted 8 extra sauces with his food. I told him it would cost extra because it's store policy, and he got a bit agitated. He then tried ordering his coffee, and he kept on confusing me, saying he wanted this amount of condiments inside and this amount outside, and other special requests for his coffee. And I also couldn't really hear him the whole time, so I just punch in everything on the register that I think he's trying to tell me, and when I finally repeat his order, he had a look of sheer rage on his face, raised his voice and told me I have his whole order wrong. I told him I can change it, no problem, but he just proceeded to yell names at me, telling me I didn't know how to do my job and said, forget you, I'll go with the other cashier. By now, he had caused a scene and everyone was staring at me. It was truly awkward, and I was angry at the guy because I had just tried to help him with his order. Soon after, when he got his food, he seemed like he had calmed down and tried to shake my hand and say sorry, but I slapped his hand away, shrugged, and told him something like, nah, you gave me a hard time. Try doing something like that again, and I'll tell everyone to not give you service ever again. He didn't say a word and just left. Next story. I didn't blow up, but a customer screamed at me in front of our entire restaurant. She ordered a breakfast for her family on a Sunday, our busiest days, and told her there would be a 45-minute wait for such a huge order to go. She came in 10 minutes later, furious we didn't have it ready yet. She was so angry this was causing her to miss church. She ended up leaving after calling me a string of names without the food. She came back in later and hugged me, told me she was sorry, and said something along the lines of having a sick child. I don't know. I block bad crap at work out of my head, but the hypocrisy still cries out in my brain from time to time. 2 in a row with weird apologies. She must have had a literal come-to-God moment. Maybe church isn't so bad for her. It might be the only way for her to calm down with everything else that's going on with her. Next story. It was 8:45. We closed at 9. This old man was in our pharmacy to check his blood pressure and became irate over something. It was 30 plus years ago. Started yelling at the manager, who was the sweetest, nicest person who worked there. She was trying her hardest to calm him down, but he was having none of it. I was working as the cashier, and I don't think I've ever been so angry. I was ready to crawl across the counter and eat his face. I was so mad. So he's going off yelling about how his money pays our salaries and how the customer is always right as he's stomping off towards the door. As he hits the exit, with my most crap-eating grin, I pipe up in the sweetest, most sarcastic tone you could ever imagine. Have a great night and come back soon. My manager did get on to me because she was afraid that he was the sort who would come back and cause trouble by escalating it above our heads, but I didn't care. It was the only thing I could think of to do that got my point across without using any bad language. What was he gonna do? Complain about being told to have a nice evening? Next story. Maybe not blow up, but I did have to get a customer away from a new coworker at the time. The conversation somehow went from his Rottweilers in Cuba to how he thinks 16-year-olds in Cuba are more mature, and that's why they bang sooner. I was trying to pull attention from said coworker to start with, but flat out told him this wasn't the time and place to talk about this when he told a story he heard or read on the news of a guy going to jail for having relations with a 16-year-old. He said, but she spread her legs for him. The second I quietly but firmly told him to stop, he pulled the free country card because these types of people don't understand that the law doesn't apply to private businesses. He then called me a computer dictator because of this, and even other customers had my back because he just kept ranting like a crazy person. I don't think he left for another 10 minutes, and I'm shocked the manager didn't just kick his butt out considering he was talking about how much he hated America and wished it would blow up. You know, as he's currently shopping in America, presumably because he can't get what supplies he needs in Cuba. It's a bold conversation topic. I'll give him that. Not one I think you should pull out in public or private, but It's definitely something that you can say, I guess. Absolutely no semblance of self-awareness. What in the world? Next story. Never blew up that I can remember, but I do remember getting smug satisfaction once. This was a long time ago. I worked 1 hour photo at a CVS style store. We would take overflow at our register if the lines got too long. A lady comes up with a cart full of stuff and a large fistful of coupons. Whatever. I ring her up, process the coupons. The total is something over $100, something like $122.35. She gets mad, saying I messed up and gets pretty whiny. After a little back and forth, I void the whole transaction and start again. After every item, this cat food rang at 89 cents. Is that okay? After every coupon. You can see $1 came off, ma'am. Is that correct? This must have taken 15 minutes. At the end, as you can see, the total is now $122.35. She was furious, but couldn't say anything. It was glorious. I'm 37 now. Have a child. 1 hour photos don't exist, but I still think of my triumph. Next story. I've worked in a hardware store since I was 16, 21 in a few weeks. When I was about 17, I cut 2 keys for a guy. I had been cutting keys for a while, so had gotten the hang of it. I was told that he returned when I wasn't there, told my colleagues that the keys didn't work, shouting that I was a stupid little girl that didn't know what she was doing. I shouldn't be allowed to cut keys, etc., etc. My colleague was already upset, but looked at the keys to see what the problem was. He had been trying the keys in the wrong locks, as in key A in lock B and key B in lock A. He left with his tail between his legs and has not returned since. As a young blonde girl, I regularly get crap like this. Proving them that I'm far more clued up than they think I am is always satisfying, though. Next story. I was working one of the Call of Duty midnight launch events. We had about 300 people lined up outside. My boss was trying to give instructions to the customers using a small bullhorn that wasn't very loud. I stepped in with my mom voice, and while explaining how the lines would move, some kid starts yelling the names of women's private body parts at me. I finally lost it on this kid and yelled back at him that if he didn't knock it off, I'd send his butt to the back of the line. All 300 people went dead silent, but the kid never said another word. I'm now standing there realizing that my boss is standing next to me and he heard all of that. Fast forward to the end of the night after we got all those people their games. My boss gives me a high five, and we never spoke about the incident. Next story. I was super busy trying to run the shop and the counter. I'd already sold 14 sets of tires, not including the odd or individual tires, and this older guy comes up, demanded I go get him a tire. He tells me the size, and I told him it'd have to be ordered. We don't carry 13-inch tires on hand. He blew up and started calling me racial slurs I haven't heard since grade school. I told him to leave my shop. He got in my face and raised his hand to hit me. That's when I lost my crap and dragged the old man off the property and called the cops on him. Next day, dude comes back in, glasses and a hat, and asks politely to order the tire. Call the cops again and have him jailed for trespassing. Next story. I worked at a Kmart, and me being fired was a joke of a concept because we were going out of business and they were understaffed. So, to say the least, I could get away with a lot. One day, as I was about to leave, a customer was harassing one of my fellow cashiers. The lady was trying to buy a Lego set for her son, an expensive one. I think it was originally priced at like $100 and was 80 to 85% off. However, the box it came in was pretty banged up, so she felt entitled to even more of a discount. Now, if you aren't aware, going out of business sales are as-is sales. This means that all the items sold are discounted and being sold in the condition they're in for that discounted price, no exceptions. This isn't set in place by Kmart employees or even the management staff. It's set by the persons foreclosing, I think that's the right term, usually a parent or a buyer, company representative. She was demanding the cashier give her 20% extra off the already discounted price. The cashier tried to explain calmly and professionally how the system worked. Lady wasn't buying it and getting up in the cashier's face. Then she started using racial discrimination against the cashier, Hispanic. This set me off. Ma'am, what seems to be the problem?
Your cashier is not cooperating with me.
How so?
This item is,
whatever price it was,
but it's damaged and I should get a discount for that.
You are getting a discount, an 80 to 85% discount actually.
I should get more because it's damaged.
This is an as-is sale, ma'am. Do you know what an as-is sale means? It means the item being sold is sold as is. Or are you too stupid to understand that?
But I'm getting that for my child. Pieces could be missing.
If you feel like pieces could be missing, you are more than welcome not to buy the item. Buy it full price, somewhere more reliable.
But I can't afford that.
Then I guess you can just not buy it. She stormed off after making a point to throw the Lego set on the ground and remark,
"This is why your piece of crap store is closing down."
Actually, we just didn't hit budget 2 years in a row because there was a Walmart right across from us. Wasn't really much of a blow up, I guess, but I am a pretty calm and collected person usually, so it's the worst I've been to a customer. But it was still so satisfying. Sometimes entitled people just need to be knocked down a peg, especially the ones who feel the need to make racial remarks to cashiers. Cashiers just want to afford food that week. Stop taking it out on them. Next story. So I was working as a cashier when I was 16, and this 50-year-old woman's total was $6. She gave me 10 loonies. A loonie is a Canadian dollar. It's a $1 coin. She gave me 10 when the total is 6. So I was like, here, take these back since you have exact change. You'll get it back anyway. She started freaking out, calling me an idiot, asking what kind of people they hire here. Started throwing stuff. She yelled in my face and other customers were so shocked. She said,
Why don't you go back to school? Clearly you're too stupid for this job.
So I went, why don't you go back to your retirement home? Clearly you lack basic social skills. It was my last week anyway. Next story. There's this woman who comes to buy stuff every day. Now she is really annoying. Every weekend she'll come and buy whatever she needs, then ask us to keep her groceries in there until she's back from walking the dogs. I don't get why she can't walk the dogs first and then go and shop for whatever she needs. Also, she always leaves the dogs for half an hour or so tied in the entry with them barking all the time and bothering everyone. When she's back from walking the dogs, she enters with them. Every time I tell her that dogs aren't allowed in here. Another day I was about to leave because my shift was over. I was attending my last customer and told everyone else to go to another cashier. She comes to where I am and drops all her stuff in my place. I tell her my shift is over and I'm leaving. She tells me that since she has already put her stuff on my place, I could just attend to her. I tell her no, because I already told her that she should go to another cashier before she started putting her things in my place. She starts talking, but I ignore her and just to leave. Then she demands to talk to someone in charge and says I was rude to her. Everyone ignores her. And there's this other day that she got mad over a freaking plastic bag. I don't know in other countries, but here in Spain, when you go to a supermarket, you have to pay for your bag. That's why a lot of people come with their own bags from home. Then she asks for a paper bag instead of a plastic bag. I tell her we don't have paper bags. She looks at me up and down and asks me if I'm not going to ask someone. Ask what? I say.
Ask someone if there are any paper bags.
I already told you there are no paper bags. She then demands for me to go and ask someone else if there are any paper bags. I tell her there are no paper bags. Never mind who she asks, the answer will be the same.
I'm not asking anything. You're asking someone else if there are any paper bags. That's your job.
My answer? That's not my job. Do you want a freaking plastic bag or not? I have no time to waste, so quit this attitude or go to another place to buy your crap. I said that not yelling, but in a mad tone. She then pays for her crap and leaves. Next story. Was a grocery store cashier in high school. Had a dad and his toddler son come through my lane one afternoon. Racked up $302 in groceries and only had $300 EBT voucher, so Dad proceeds to tell his son that this man, me, says you can't take the bananas with you today. Annoyed, I decide this is my hill to die on at 16 and tell him that's not the case, and not to lie to his son. Perhaps another item could be left behind so the son could have these bananas. It blows up and my manager tells me I have to apologize to the man or be fired. Walked out and never looked back. Next story. This is about my old friend, Miss Frances. She worked at the drugstore next door to the office building where I worked, and we all shopped there so often their employees were just like our coworkers. Miss Frances was beloved for two things. One, when she handed you your change, she said the exact same thing without fail, just like she'd been doing 40 years prior.
34 cents is yours. Thank you. Have a blessed day.
2, if any of the neighborhood drug addicts, crazies, or jerks tried to give her any trouble, she would snatch the wig from atop her head and beat the crap out of them with it until they ran out the door. Miss Frances could wield that wig like a ninja. You could literally hear the pop, pop, pop as each blow landed on her victim's head. It must have been over 25 years since she retired. I hope she's happy and healthy somewhere, blessing people's days and keeping the trifling ones in check. Next story. I used to work at a big box retail store, and in my last week of work, I was helping a customer find a storage container. This wasn't my department, so I really didn't know the area all too well, but I was the only person around. The only one she wanted had a defect, so she was wondering if we had any in the back. We didn't, as we held that item off-site, and the earliest time it could be in the store was the next day. She didn't want that. The next thing I do is offer to call the closest store to see what they had in stock. Well, she didn't want that either. At this point, I'm starting to get annoyed because I have her two great options that she rejected. The last thing I do is offer her 10% off the defected one right now because that's the only option. She starts getting upset with me because I, quote, wasn't doing my job. That's when I lost it. It's my last week and the job and I wanted it to be peaceful, but she ruined it. I looked at her and said, I don't understand what you want from me, but I gave you 3 perfectly good options and you rejected all of them. I can't wave my wand and make a brand new storage container tonight. That was enough to make her disappear. That was the most memorable time I blew up at work. Other than the time someone who thought they were my superior called me a stupid monkey. As a black man, I wasn't going to take that. I blew up on her and got her butt fired. Next story. Never blew up on a customer, but the most sass I gave was when we were having a 20% off sale. Guy buying an item for $24.99. On sale for 20% off, $19.99. Plus 13% tax is $22.59 or $22.60 with rounding. Canada if the high tax and rounding seem odd to you. Anyway, this guy could not comprehend his total. He kept going, really? 20% off? That's 20% off? It seems too high. You took the 20% off? Yeah. I'm like, yup. You saved $5 and then there's tax. After a bit of back and forth with me showing him the sticker price, the sale price, the tax, the till screen, dude could not get his head around the fact that 20% of 25 is 5. Eventually, with the line growing irritated and my manager ringing a line through next to me, he asks for the 100th time, really, $22.60? That seems high. I got fed up, dropped my fake customer service persona, looked him dead in the eye and flatly said, yeah, it is. Now, do you need me to get you a calculator and show you on that too, or are you gonna buy it? He shut up and paid. My manager tried to hide a laugh and let it slide. I've had worse customers, but I'll remember that dumb guy forever. Just goes to show that sometimes the most memorable ones aren't the stupidest ones, but just stupid enough. Something where you're like, you really should be getting this, dude, but not like ridiculously stupid, you know? Next story. Many years since I worked in retail, but I remember one incident when I was working for a well-known UK frozen food retailer. Christmas Eve, we were all getting ready to finish and go home for a couple of well-deserved days off. 2 of the 3 shutters were down in the store, and the last one behind the till was lowered just a little as a hint. Shopping center that the store was in was closed too, and the security guard was hanging around waiting for us. Most of the staff were gathered around chatting. Everyone working until close waited, so we all left the store at the same time for security. One customer left, shopping trolley full, finally gets to the checkout. Cashier quickly rings up the total, came to something around the £80 mark. Customer at this point decides she doesn't have enough. No problem, we can take a few items off. Start doing some refunds. Customer starts complaining that she needs it all. Manager shows up and tries to help, asking how much she actually has on her and trying to work out what can be taken off. At this point, pretty much everyone there has realized she's trying to get some Christmas miracle, and for my boss to turn around and say, oh, well, just have the lot for free and Merry Christmas. No chance. Cue my boss starting to refund everything, telling her if she can't decide, she gets nothing. Customer, of course, doesn't like this and starts screaming. Doesn't realize that after the last couple of months of not seeing daylight due to long hours and short days that none of us have any Christmas cheer left. If we had any to begin with, we worked retail after all. Security guard escorts her out to shouts of, my family will starve, and you just ruined Christmas for us. Not a tear was shed. Finally, we closed the last shutter and left. 30 minutes later than we were meant to. Retail is soul-destroying. Still dislike Christmas 25 years later. Still a firm believer that everyone should do a stint in some customer-facing position, retail, hospitality, etc., and learn some manners. Fun fact about your friendly neighborhood narrator, I recently got a job working at my local game store. My first customer-facing position ever. I've usually just done arts jobs and stuff like that. I figured I was there enough, so why not? The people who ran it like me, so they just took me on part-time. I haven't experienced a Christmas in retail yet. I'm hoping that because we're a specialty store, it's a little less bad, but that's probably hopeful of me. Pokemon releases are already absolute hell. Next story. I was 17 at the time, now 23. I was working in the night shift, work at a McDonald's now, and a middle-aged lady walks in. She grabs a few beers, a bottle of champagne, and comes to the counter to pay. The total was around $30 or something like that. She puts the stuff on the table and hands me 10. Ma'am, this isn't enough. She then goes on a huge rant about how she doesn't have a job, single mother, etc. I explained to her that $10 isn't enough. She begins to call me a terrible person and I'm disrespectful to women. I grab the beer, champagne, and put it under the counter and I tell her to leave. She complies and I go about my business. Around 15 minutes later, she walks back into the store. She begins to beg me to buy the drinks for her, but in an aggressive manner. I explain that I can't give the drinks to her for free. She goes nuts and starts grabbing boxes of Cheez-Its and crushing them with her hands. I'm honestly just confused. I don't know what's going on. I yell to stop, but then she goes and grabs more beers and a bottle of champagne and says, "You're a jerk. For being mean to me, I'm taking these and leaving." I threaten to call the cops, and she says that she's going to lie and say I hit her. I decide to call the cops anyway. They arrive, and luckily I had security camera footage to show them. She lied about me hitting her and was charged with attempted theft. Next story. Man came to my express, 1 to 15 items line, with a basket full of groceries. I asked him to count his items because, I'm sorry, this is an express line. He responded with,
That's okay. You can count them.
Now, I was a fast cashier. People have better places to be than my grocery line. I could run up 25 to 30 items a minute with 100% accuracy. You better believe, though, that I went as slow as freaking possible to run up this guy's order. 3 to 5 seconds plus per item as he got progressively redder and redder. I finished the order with, "It's unfortunate how many people you've held up in the line, sir. Have a fantastic day." He called me a jerk and stormed off. I apologized to every customer in line for the wait and got them out in record time. It was a small victory, but it was my victory. Every other customer wore nothing but a smile on their face for me in that glorious moment. Next story. I had a job during college working as a cashier. The company stocked some considerably expensive stuff. It was basically the place where businesses buy stuff to sell in their businesses. So they started this new security thing where we would spot check self-scan customers at the end of their purchase to deter theft. The more you pass security checks, the less the system would flag your membership up for checks. Basically, I was having such a mentally off day, I braved to face through many crappy customers. Yet this one woman was adamant on prodding my nerves with a hot poker. Like, she was one of those customers where everything was my fault. She was late? My fault. She failed the security check? My fault. She was in a bad mood? My fault. I was obligated by company policy to carry out these checks. Yeah, you guessed it. My fault. She made one comment.
Well, aren't you going to hurry up? You're making me late.
I literally dropped the security check scanner and walked away. I said ever so politely, "Enjoy your wait, because I'm not standing here taking your disrespect." She couldn't leave with an incomplete scan as it would set off the alarms. Left her shouting and screaming after me at the checkout.
Don't you walk away and leave me here.
Made her wait even longer for my manager to notice she was flailing around in the middle of the checkouts. I strolled off and decided to finish doing stock duties. I got pulled up for it and said, "My own mother doesn't talk to me like that, and I certainly don't get paid enough in here for that crap." Got off with it, but hell no am I putting up with that from anyone. Next story. Was working at the service desk and I picked up the phone and did my routine, "Thank you for calling, company. How may I direct your call?" And immediately got the response,
"How about you direct me to someone who knows where they freaking work at?"
I responded, "Duh. Excuse me, sir, but I'm just trying to help you reach the correct department, and there's no need for you to have an attitude with me." He then explained how he had forwarded himself to 3 different departments already. When you call the store, you can direct yourself or talk to the service desk to be sent to a department, which is what 99% of people do. And no one could immediately answer his question because he had sent himself to the wrong department, and they had to walk back to the correct one to read off the sizes on the item he wanted. I eventually cut him off and said, "If you would just tell me what item you have questions about, I will send you to the right department. There's no need to waste time picking a fight with me." And he said,
"No, I want you to walk your butt back there and check for me yourself. I will not be transferred again."
I responded, "I am at the desk and will not go back there for you. Come in and walk your butt back there yourself," and hung up. I left soon after, and my coworkers the next day said the man came in and apologized to each department he called and told them to apologize to me as well for him. Next story. Worked at a secondhand store about 7 years ago. I covered the breaks of our day shift cashier. We'll name her Jill. Jill had a noticeable learning disability, but could do math necessary for register work, so that was her primary duty. She was on register for over 15 years. One day I was stocking shelves and I overheard some jerk arguing with the Jill. Highly unusual, as most people there in the morning were regulars and loved Jill. I started eavesdropping to see what was happening just in case Jill needed help. The customer was paying with card, and our company policy was to ask for a state-issued ID or military ID or passport to go with the card to prevent identity theft. The customer's credit card had his picture on it, and he was insisting that should suffice. Jill was a stickler for policy and wouldn't let it slide, as she shouldn't. He refused to give her his ID. He called her stupid and the R word, so I intervened. I told Jill, who was near in tears, to take her break and I would handle it. She left and I took over. I acted like the nicest person. All, "So sorry about that. Let me see if I can help you." He turned to me, said that Jill was stupid, and handed me his card. I look at it and say, "Oh, we can absolutely take this." He laughed and said, "Oh, good." I smiled my best customer service smile and said, "Of course," after I see some ID. Cue his female dog fit Part 2. He started complaining that we were discriminating against him because of his religion, Mennonite, he said, that he was a businessman and deserved the same treatment as anyone, said that his picture on his card was obviously him and that we were being stupid. I, still smiling, retaliated with an annoyingly perky tone. Your religion and business status doesn't give you the right to be a bully. This picture on your card is blurry, not clearly you, and even if it were, it isn't a state-issued ID. Give me your ID or get out, sir. After much grumbling and several complaints about my attitude, Kua puzzled. What attitude, sir? He threw me his ID. Had it this whole time. I rang him up, bagged his purchase, and while beaming said, "Thank you, come again." He got angrier and said, I'm never coming back to this place. I replied in a super perky customer service tone, "Can I get that in writing?" He left. I turned to the next person with an unfazed, "Good morning, hope you found everything okay." All the customers who had overheard him were supportive towards Jill. Some wanted to check on her and stuck around for her return from break. Jill was fine, FYI. Manager found out what happened and told Jill, the customer's always right, unless the customer's a jerk. Made her giggle. Next story. I'm a manager at a grocery store. I was checking because we were busy, and a dude wearing a Dallas Cowboys jersey comes through my line. He didn't have a whole lot, but he paid with both dollar bills and loose change, so it took a bit to count it because I don't trust people. He gets really angry, asks me if I'm stupid or something, and insists he could have done it better. He had been pretty quiet, though, because there were other people in line, so I loudly asked him if he talks to everyone like that, or just people that can't fight back. He got really quiet and left. Next story. I worked at a coffee shop in Amsterdam, and some punk thought he was enough of a regular to take my dishes outside. I kindly explained that the cups are supposed to stay inside. There are strict rules for coffee shops, and the city won't hesitate closing us down over the littlest thing, so I offer him a takeaway cup, but he denied that. He waited till my back was turned and snuck out with the full cups of cappuccino. I followed him out and an argument started. He was acting so entitled because he was the brother of our neighbor. I can't remember what he said, but I got so mad that I chucked a full cup of coffee at the dude's face. Next story. I worked as a cashier while I was in college at a gas station/car wash. We sold refills for 50 cents, but 64 ounces or 100 ounces refills were 95 cents. Someone undercharged this guy's 100-ounce mug the last time he was in. They charged him 50 cents. I charged him 95. He pitched a fit. I had a line backed up behind him and apologized and said someone charged him incorrectly and this was the price. It's a difference of 45 cents. The man threw his tantrum and yelled at me for a couple minutes while I stared at him, then finally calmed down a bit and said, guess you don't set the prices though, huh? And handed me $1. I said, no, but you still shot the freaking messenger. Have a fabulous day. We had to use the farewell at this station. He gaped at me as I handed him a nickel and turned to the person behind him and started helping them very politely. When he finally got over his shock that I was an actual human being that he just hurled abuse at for several minutes and made a fool of himself and I talked back, he left. Never saw him again, and I wasn't sad about it. Next story. I work at a small market as my student job. A regular client came to the counter and asked for a cup. We sell cups of coffee and cups of soup, so to be sure, I asked him if he meant a coffee cup, relatively normal question. All of a sudden, he snapped at me, calling me a son of a female dog, a shame to humankind, and other harsh words in front of other customers who kinda knew me as the calm and helpful guy. One of them, like 70 years old, tried to defend me, but got pushed by the customer who snapped at me. This made me go crazy, and I snapped back at the customer. Most of the customers told me they were shocked to see me like that. The customer stayed for another 20 minutes in the market asking to see my boss and saying he's going to make my boss fire me and he'll personally take care that I don't ever find any kind of job afterwards. My boss, who I worked with for a year or so at the moment it happened, took my defense but still tried to hear out the customers. Luckily, all the customers took my defense and I didn't get into too much trouble, but the mad customer called the police, saying how I attacked him for no reasons and other lies. This regular customer forgot that we have multiple cameras around the store and other customers ready to tell the truth. He was refused access to the market for a few months, but I was tired of hearing him yell at me at the doors of my market, so I let him in to have peace of mind. He snapped at me again that it was my fault he was considered a dangerous man around the block. Again, a dispute broke out in the market, making everyone nervous. But my boss took my defense again and made sure he didn't come back to this place. Since then, all he does is say hello from afar and stand in front of the market. You know what, OP? It is your fault. How dare you have made him yell at you? I can't even do this as a bit. It just doesn't make any sense. I feel like if the neighborhood knows you as a dangerous man, you should look inwards. But people like that just won't. So what can you do? Next story. When I was 15, I worked as a secretary for a local doctor. This one guy comes into the clinic and tries to go inside the doctor's office out of his turn. I step in and tell him that he's next. The guy waits by the door for about 10 more minutes while mumbling curses to himself and side-eyeing me. I just sit there, look at him, wait for the door to open, go inside and tell the doctor that the guy just stood there and cursed at me for 10 minutes. The doctor says, okay. I closed the door behind me and went to my desk. A few minutes later, I hear shouts from inside. A few minutes go by. The fragile, old, nice neighborhood doctor is screaming like I couldn't even imagine. The door opens and the guy leaves. The doctor comes out and tells me with his gentle voice, I told him this is unacceptable behavior and that he is no longer welcome here. Turns back to his office and never speaks about it again. Next story. It was the night before my husband's birthday and I was the shift supervisor. Right before my lunch break, a kind of creepy guy started to talk to me about mirrors before heading to the pharmacy. Whatever. When my lunch was wrapping up, I kind of glanced down the aisles in hunt of a last-minute gift. When I got back to the register to clock back in, that creepy guy was there and screamed at me,
That was so rude.
I assumed he was talking about the pharmacy because we got complaints all the time. No, it was about me looking around the store while off the clock. When I explained this, he responded with,
Oh, now you're calling me stupid? I'm gonna call corporate if you don't apologize.
oh, hell no. Cue yelling match. Next story. I bartended at an extremely large bar in an extremely large restaurant. We usually ran with 3 bartenders, 2 regular bartenders and 1 on service bar to make the servers' tables drinks on a Saturday night. There were close to 50 seats at the bar. We were packed. All seats taken and guests standing at the bar. The other bartender had split for quite some time to check on a food order in the kitchen, leaving me with 50 plus customers for over 15 minutes. But I was doing it. I was on fire, taking drink orders, food orders, slamming out drinks with attentiveness, although it was obviously stressful. 3 dudes come up. I put napkins down, greet them, and tell them I'll be with them shortly. In a proficient tornado, I finished the immediate customers before them who had ordered before the guys showed up, finished making their drinks, putting their food order in, etc. I spin around to the guys who waited no more than 3 minutes, apologize for the wait, and ask them what they'd like to drink. Guy in the middle looks annoyed, says loudly and angrily, Oh, so now you're ready for us? I should add that I'm extremely affable, friendly, and quick to smile, all of which they'd received to this point. My face drops and I roar at him, Yes, now I'm ready for you. His buddies immediately laugh at him and hide their faces with menus. He retorts, Oh, you can't handle how busy it is? I roar back, It is busy, and I am handling it extremely freaking well. Can I make you a drink? They ordered. His buddies snickered some more. No complaint to the manager, and they tipped well. Next story. I work in a small store with about 12 employees total. All the cashiers besides me are women, and I was covering for the girl who was on register while she went to the bathroom. A 50-something guy comes to check out and asks, quote, where the pretty girl is. I say, she went to the bathroom. He replies,
It's too bad. I would have offered to show her a good time.
I responded, If you so much as look at that girl, I will kick both your nuts back into your abdomen and then call the police because she is 16. He left and I haven't seen him in the store since. Next story. I used to work at a dollar store that sold food, and I rang up an older white lady who had a rather large order. I bag up all her items and tell her to have a nice day, blah blah blah. One of the items she bought was lunch meat, spiced turkey to be specific. It was a really disgusting flesh color with flecks of acid red peppers all over it, real slimy looking even in the package. She bought 4 packages of it that I double bagged with nothing else in the bag. This turkey is important. I move on to the next customer and don't think anything of it. The lady comes back 5 minutes later, slams her hand on my counter while I have another customer and point blank yells at me, You have my turkey! I'm taken aback by her ferocity and just go, I'm sorry? You have my turkey! You stole my turkey! You have it back there! No, ma'am, I do not have your turkey. You have it! I know you have it, you little liar! It's in one of these bags here. At this point, she starts rifling through these other customers' bags, and I tell her firmly, Ma'am, these are not your items. You may not go through them. I guarantee you that your turkey is not on my counter, it is not in my bagging area, and it is not in my go-backs. Please check your vehicle. It should be in a bag all by itself, double-bagged. You can't tell me what to do, missy.
I'll do as I please. You've stolen my turkey and I demand you give it back.
Ma'am, I do not have your turkey, and you're welcome to come check behind my register yourself. Otherwise, please go check your vehicle. She storms off. I finish with 2 more customers, but then she comes back.
It's not there. I checked every bag. You've stolen my turkey for yourself. You're hiding it under your register so you could take it home and eat it.
At this point, I was fed up with this woman and knew I was most likely never going to see her again, because that's just the nature of the store I worked at. So I responded with, "Ma'am, I'm a vegan. I don't eat meat, and even if I did, the turkey that you're accusing me of stealing from you is the nastiest looking food to ever cross my register. I'd rather hurl. You can either go get more turkey from the freezer or you can leave."
I want your manager.
My manager is currently on a bank run, and I'm the most senior cashier on the floor. Either go get more turkey from the freezer or leave. She chose to leave. Never saw her again. I quit that job about 4 months later, and Hurricane Harvey destroyed the building. I do not miss it. I really should have looked at how many quotes they had from that woman before choosing that voice. Holy. Good thing we're almost done, because I am dying out here. Annoying customers, I give the most obnoxious voices. And that's doing a number on my throat, let me tell ya. Next story. Okay, so I didn't blow up at a customer, but a colleague. My manager. Let's call her Amy. I work in a McDonald's and have done so for the last 7 years. After a year and a half working there, I was a well-respected employee, did my job, was interactive with customers, and tried to make them smile whilst serving them, all the while still being the lowest-ranked employee, a crew member. In my 3rd year, Amy, who had worked alongside me for the previous 2, had managed to rise to an area manager. Her father is very high up in the company, so she got everything done for her and still got praised. I thought we got on. We were friendly and was a completely professional relationship, but as soon as she got into a manager position, complete 180. She starts terrorizing me and everything that I do, even though I'm completely following procedures. I'm doing my primary and secondary duties and keeping my times fairly low, which is hard to do. I stick with it until I turn 18, which was about 3 months later, and immediately threatened to quit if I wasn't put on permanent overnight shifts, where it's only 3 employees running the store from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. They accepted. Nothing eventful ever happens for another 4.5 years, and by that time, my girlfriend Sophie had just started working here as a temp job whilst she was finishing uni. I had just finally given in to the managers telling me to be a crew trainer for a 12% pay raise. I get scheduled to be my girlfriend's trainer, and the first shift that I'm not an overnighter, Amy is the shift runner, which means she controls the entire store, is the highest authority. She tells me to train her on item dressing, side 1, which means it's the main side of food production, not where we train new starters. I point out to her that it's not procedure, but I just want Sophie to settle in comfortably and not be tortured on her first shift. I just use that as an excuse. Amy explodes at me, shouting at me, telling me that I have to listen and train her on the hardest part of the store. Everyone hears and customers are shocked. I fire back, saying I'm not training her there when I can train her on a different station where she's more comfortable. She ends up telling me that if I don't comply, she'll have me and my girlfriend fired. I shout back from across the store, "Freaking fire me then! Call your daddy and cry to him. You're crap at your job and should have never gotten promotions." Knowing she can't fire me because I haven't done anything wrong apart from shout back. Me and Sophie walk out 6 hours before our shifts end. Later that week, I have a meeting discussing my future at the company, and it's decided I get put back on overnighters and Amy moves stores. I'm still confused as to why Amy hates me so much. I can't remember arguing with her at the beginning. I'm now working 4 nights a week, overnights with Sophie. It's such a fun 8 hours just messing around in the store. Sorry for how long this was. Next story. I worked as a cashier for a grocery store and was offered overtime to come in over the weekend and repaint the men and women's bathrooms. I took the shifts thinking it would be cake. For the 2 days that I had to paint the bathrooms, I must have been interrupted 30 different times by customers, despite the fact there was a display blocking the entrance, signs saying bathrooms closed for painting in various locations, and tape over the doors so you couldn't get in without ducking down and basically crawling underneath. On the second day while painting the bathroom, someone comes in for the 10th time that day and says, are the bathrooms closed, or can I just use one? I snapped and yelled, "What are you, stupid?" And then aggressively pointed to the door and said, "You need to leave. They are not open." I got written up, but it was a crappy store anyway, so write-ups meant nothing, and I worked there for 3 more years. Next story. I was 16, just promoted from bagger to cashier at Wild Oats, now Whole Foods. A woman came through with about $120 worth of grass-fed lamb and kept swiping her card, but it wasn't taking, and I was asking her to keep doing it. Since I was literally just a day or two old at being a cashier, I didn't know food stamps were not actually stamps and were on a card. She was on an EBT card, and I kept pressing the credit card button on my side, so that's why it wasn't taking. She was getting increasingly frustrated and the line was growing behind her. She eventually blew up on me saying I was embarrassing her for having EBT and called my manager over. My manager was cool and said I was new, and then the woman just abandoned the $120 worth of lamb and left. Now I know that food stamps aren't actually stamps. Next story. Mine is really tame, but I worked at the food court at Target. My store had a bakery, and they would bring some of the donuts and muffins and put them in a case near the register. It was a small case about the size of 2 bread boxes side by side and had a little door that opened in the front and a removable back to take the tray out. I normally asked the guest which they wanted so I could grab it with gloves on. There was a regular guest that had a 4-year-old that constantly jumped and picked his muffin out, but touching each one. I told her to not let him do that next time because now I can't sell these ones. She makes some passive-aggressive remarks about how no one else has an issue with them and how she shops here often. Next week she comes back in and I turn the case around because he's already diving for it. She tells him, "Oh, we aren't allowed to do that when he's here," and snaps at me for overreacting by turning the case around. I told her bluntly that he cannot reach in. If he tells me what he wants, I'll get it. This happens 3 more times. Each time I block off the case. She gets fed up, says she won't buy the muffins from me anymore, and will buy it from the bakery case in the other section of the store, as if that was hurting me in some way. Next story. Oh, there are so many to choose from. I have the luxury of being quite liberal with my honesty since the tongue-in-cheek service with a snarl is part of the charm where I work. Usually I'm polite, but I don't spare feelings if a customer is being rude or unreasonably difficult, even more so since I've become a duty manager. Probably the angriest I've ever been with a customer before is with this woman and her sister. These girls, I tell you, built like bloody rugby players they were, with all the grace and splendor of an oil tanker as they blotted out the sun in their passing. Their voices were like if Patty and Selma had just run a marathon in the rain. When they arrived, they weren't rude to me or other customers. They didn't make annoying or complex orders, but the two of them kept bickering and bickering and bickering. Like a pair of mice being slowly eaten by owls, they squeaked and squawked in their harsh, guttural baritones that could be heard hither and yon, and it got worse and louder and meaner as time went on. It got at me like husky nails on a dirty chalkboard. Eventually, the bickering turned to arguing and shouting, and arguing turned to shoving, and shoving turned to punching. I held the two of them apart to break it up and talked it through with them, as is standard. But right as I had decided to let my arms down that the situation was diffused, one squiffy sister socked her sibling squarely in the schnoz, spraying us with spit and snot. I'd had enough. I pushed the offensive buffoon back so forcefully she was sent clattering over a table, knocking it to the ground and drenching her with the drinks that were sitting atop it. She picked herself up and I just barked the word at her, making it clear I would accept no argument. Out. The sense of elation I felt as she ambled off throwing insults back at me was unreal. I felt as though I'd conquered a mighty beast and saved the villagers from its terrible wrath. In all seriousness, though, it was my first full-blown fistfight I'd ever broken up, and I remember it fondly. Did wonders for my self-esteem going forward. Next story. I used to be a cashier. One night I was scheduled for self-checkout. A lady was struggling using the scanner and asked me for help. Her question was, "How do I scan these strawberries?" I showed her how to scan her strawberries on the machine, and she asked me condescendingly, "No, you are not understanding my question. Do you know English, or do you need to go back to China?" I responded with, "I'm obviously speaking to you in English, so yes, I know English because I was born and raised in America, but are you not listening to the question you're asking me? Because it seems like you don't know English. You should go back to kindergarten, learn some basics and manners again." Basically what I said, minus all the cuss words. I told her she can continue to struggle by herself or just to leave. She left after saying some racial slurs, but I made sure my manager was able to ban her from coming into the store ever again. I later found out she was a grandmother to one of the students I taught during my student teaching. It was definitely a rough semester for me. Next story. Not technically a blow-up, but great revenge. Working at a craft store as a stockman/emergency cashier over Christmas. I was helping a young woman pick out a flag display case for her grandfather when this man comes up behind me and taps me on the shoulder. Before we continued, this customer had come in several times before during the last 2 weeks before Christmas and had been short with the full-time stockman his first time in, so he was referred to me instead. The customer had his eye on a set of drawers, as they were a perfect size for his fossil collection. Having a common interest in paleontology, I asked him what the pride of his collection was, and he told me he'd purchased a tyrannosaur jawbone for $4,000. He had then laughed and told me not to tell his wife, as he told her he'd only spent $1,500. Now, back to our current predicament. After tapping me on the shoulder, he demanded I go to the back and retrieve a set of those shelves for him. At our store, we got stock in once a week, and if it wasn't on the floor, we probably didn't have it in the back. But seeing as I had the rapport with him, I asked him to kindly wait for a few minutes so I could finish helping the customer in front of me. Then I would gladly look in the back for it. He told me I was just being a lazy bum that didn't want to do my job. I turned away from him and got on my squawker and told my manager I had a code brown, short for I'm dealing with a jerk and he's gonna demand I call you, so get over here. Guy demands I call my manager, so freaking predictable. I tell him he's on his way and I continue to help the girl. End of night comes, I get a write-up because I was apparently very rude and my manager wouldn't hear any of what I had to say because the gentleman wasn't, and I quote, an overall soft-spoken man that only wanted some assistance. Shrugged it off, was only there for the winter anyway, kept on with my life. The guy came back 2 weeks later, wife in tow. My coworkers knew all about this guy, so I snagged the stockman and had him lead the guy off while I helped his wife pick out some flowers. We got to talking, steered the conversation towards her husband's fossil collecting hobby, mentioned that we had talked about his collection before. I said yes, his collection is quite impressive. She sighed. Expensive as well. I took my opportunity. Well, he must be fairly confident in your finances with that $4,000 he dropped on the Tyrannosaur jaw. The guy came around the corner just as the rage born from 100 unanswered questions coming to light lit up her face. He didn't even get a word out before she started howling at him. The look of recognition on his face when he saw me as he was being hounded out the door was priceless. He didn't come back during the rest of my duration there. TLDR, don't let slip a big secret to an employee you're surely going to be a jerk towards at some point, because they will screw you. Next story. I was 18 and the dude was stalking me. Mid-50s, dyed black hair, wore mesh shirts. We lived in the same neighborhood too. He would come through my line or find me while straightening shelves and talk about my parents' new roof or how he saw me mowing the lawn, etc. Now, if you work in customer service, you know you can't be rude to customers, so I would always laugh, make excuses, and walk away, and even had friends in the store that would watch out for him and rescue me if needed. Then he sent me a letter in the mail asking to be special friends. My dad and I went to my store and met with the manager, and we called for a non-emergency police meeting. They told us they couldn't do anything because I'd never asked him to go away. So, next time he got in my line, I panicked, yelling and crying that I didn't want to be anywhere near him. Yeah, it was a great scene. I think I ran off and someone took over my register. Next story. Not a cashier, but I used to work at a bakery, and this one regular customer had just lost a court battle for custody of his children due to the fact he lived in his truck and had like $37 to his name. Anyway, he comes in and tries to steal our tip jar after he tried to negotiate the price of a sandwich for like 5 minutes. He proceeds to tell the cashier he's going to be waiting for her after her shift and he's going to screw her up. I followed him outside and got in a very heated argument with him with a ban from the bakery. I was a supervisor. Escalated to a sucker punch that broke my nose. I beat his butt and wrestled with him and sat on him until police arrived. I understand having a bad day, but I was not going to allow that comment he made to go unnoticed. Do these people think they're tough? Telling the other person they're going to wait for them after their shift and beat them up? Like you are just announcing to everyone listening that you are a huge loser with nothing better to do. Let alone the fact it's like incredibly illegal, stalkerish, just horrifying in general. But yeah, really? Just so sad that people like that exist. Anyway, that's the last story for today. I would like to thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one.